What have you been up to?
I thought that question was going to come up because we don't have any other prompts for this.
Oh no, we're gonna hit up a few
It's
few
just
topics.
I mean, I am in a band that's adding a bunch of dates to the calendar right now. It's a new band for me called Ripple Effect.
How many bands do you jump around? I feel like every time I see you, you're in a new band.
So yeah, last time we kind of talked, we might have mentioned like 4 bands.
Yeah. Free Candy.
Yeah, and on that show, the little vlog thing. The bands have kind of died down, changed a little bit, and so one of the bands I was in really just has 1 or 2 dates on the calendar the whole year, and then another band's kind of entirely dissolved. So that opened up some free time. And one of the guys that had played with me in the country band called Shot Glass, he had drummed with me before, and he was like looking for a bassist in a new project, and he said, "Hey, I know a guy." So I went and tried out with him and played a gig at Stoney's Roadhouse up in Star, and it was a great fit. So that band is we've probably got close to 20 gigs on the calendar for the rest of the year already.
Gigs. What is there a mission when you join a band? Is it kind of like we are dreaming big, we want to produce a label or a record and put that out? Or is it more of like, I just like to play music and just...
So you gotta just tell the guys who are coming to, meet with you, or, if you're putting the band together like on a Facebook group or on a Craigslist ad or something, that's just what you need to make clear. Say it's an original project, I want to tour. I want to record. I just want to play around. This is just some old guys wanting to do stuff on the weekends. A big one is, do you want to have weekly rehearsals? You can't be in a bunch of bands that want to practice every single week. Yeah. So a lot of bands are like, hey, we want to do cover stuff. We want to play at bars or Big Al's or even, a Live After 5 downtown. So you get your show, you're a cover band, you get your like 3-4 hour show ready. You got 70 songs in the hopper. So you practice for a couple months until that's locked in, and then you don't have to practice again. If you keep a couple of gigs a month going, that's enough to keep you sharp.
Interesting. And all these gigs, they go pretty smoothly, or is there like a little 5% of room for error?
Oh yeah. I'd say 5 is low.
5 is low?
I'd say there's 10% room for error.
10% room for error.
I'd say in the last gig I did, so we did Indian Creek Steakhouse. We played 3 hours, and there were 2 songs that I was a little bit iffy on in like 1 part each. So other than that, the whole show is locked down. I'm playing the right thing at the whole time.
And you don't have like nobody's making you sign a do not compete clause, because like if you're in one band, doesn't the other band go like, hey man, you're giving that band too much attention?
So that's a good point.
I've been in some jealous relationships, so I kind of know how these things work.
There are, you can get an agent, you can get an attorney to look at contracts and things, but we don't really have contracts at this like amateur level.
You guys spit on the palm and just shake on it?
You respond to the Craigslist ad, and then you just let them know and say, hey, I'm sorry, another group is taking up my time or something.
And they're cool about it.
But it comes, well, maybe they are, maybe they aren't. You just have to
How many bands are you part of at once? Like 3?
So right now it's 3.
Okay.
So it's Ripple Effect, it's Blank Check, and I'm doing a gig on Mother's Day with Patrick Dansereau. But
is that the guy that was performing when we saw you guys?
Yeah.
Oh, Patrick.
Yeah, you saw him.
I like that.
So
that.
I'll play bass when he gets a full band gig. He does a lot of solo stuff. And I think I probably said like the exact same thing on the last time I was here too, talking about bands. And that's 1 to 4 or 5 things a year. I'll do that with him.
Interesting.
He keeps a binder, so he kind of has a rotation of artists. So he has a binder of music that I can just follow along with. He doesn't expect rehearsals, and he just kind of needs somebody to fill in, play the gig, and take $50 or $60 and move on.
So he'll have in his organization, he'll have like multiple bassists, multiple guitarists, drummers, that if somebody has like a bar mitzvah they got to attend to, they can switch them out.
Exactly.
A lot of bar mitzvahs in the valley,
which
nice.
is totally the right way to go about it. Because even if you have if you have a full band where you're like, this is my 5-piece band, and this is the group we really love, you really need a backup for each one. If you don't want to play with 4 on one random gig, even if like you could say, well, this guitarist can play bass and drums, so if we miss our drummer or our bassist, then they can fill in. We can still take the gig. Because stuff comes up. People get COVID. People, have family vacations, or I'm going to go on a honeymoon. You got to just
Yeah.
You don't want to lose out on the gig or lose out on a
Right.
standing thing because one person can't make it.
Is there money to be made, or is this people just doing it just for fun? Like, is this like
It's both. So in the other bands, we probably got paid about $300 for a 5-person gig. That's not a lot.
No.
And you're there for 3 hours playing music, and you have to set up and tear down and travel.
It's an all-day thing.
Yeah, it can be. Some are more convenient than others. Like when I would play the Sandbar and I lived on 27th and State, it takes 2 minutes to drive there. I play, I'm enjoying being outside. I might get you get free drinks and a discount dinner or something. So it's a swing when you say, okay, Friday night or Saturday night, I was going to go spend $100 to go out and have dinner and have drinks and entertain myself, but now you're actually going to get paid $50. Okay, so that's like a $150 swing.
Right.
That's just like playing some mental gymnastics, but because you're not getting paid much, so you have to like justify it. But this other band, we're probably doing like $150 a person.
$150 a person.
Yeah.
Now, again, it's not enough for you to be like, wow, I just spent 8 hours of my day with setup, tear down, and moving around and
yeah, don't quit your day job. Yeah.
Right. But so I guess there's the love of the game that all musicians kind of have, right?
Do you love tools? Would you build some stuff for some buddies if it meant that you got a cool table saw or something?
In my earlier stages of my career, yeah.
So that's where we're at.
Yeah, in the early
Is
stages,
you're
for
saying,
sure.
hey, I'll play gigs, that like I might have made $1,200 one year for Shot Glass, and I spent $1,200 on an acoustic guitar.
Oh, that's cool.
So you're not making any money, but
Yeah.
now you have an acoustic guitar that you keep for the rest of your life.
Well, yeah, and that I didn't compound that like towards like the year, right? I just kind of looked at it as like, oh, here's a gig, here's $50. But if you kind of say this is my side hustle thing, and we get ourselves a nice, $1,500 guitar, that makes so much
I
sense.
clearly do have fun playing. That's why why I'm going to go ahead and do it. But why I chose to do it on this day and at this time is because I'm going to get $50.
$50.
And that's going to roll up to free bass amp, free bass cab, whatever.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. Do you guys have like a friendship between, or are these more like acquaintances?
Yeah, it varies in the band. Some folks are in town, some are out of town. Some you rehearse every week and you see them all the time. Others you play, a gig and you only see them on gig days. So it's like, I'll see you in March and I'll see you in May, and that's it.
That's interesting how that unites people. Like music overall, any form of artistry like unites people who appreciate the art. But in terms of the people who like to create it, like to me, I don't like the feeling of walking into a room that I barely know somebody, right? The best equivalence to that is like classmates in college, where like you don't really hang out with these people. You see them only at this event in this class for an hour, maybe through a group project, and then you leave. I don't like that feeling. And so to sign up for something where you kind of know a guy or a gal and you see each other and you like it, to me, that creates such uncomfort levels that I'd rather just stay home.
I guess I would describe it as like I may not have a great conversation with the guitarist in this country band or something during this, Saturday we're going to play a gig. So I'm not necessarily going to get to know him any better or hang out with him during, like, he's going to be over there, I'm going to be over here, and we're not really going to talk during this 3 hours. We'll talk for like 20 minutes, 3 different times as a group during our break. But the way, I guess I would say the positive side of that is that you're going to, like, I enjoy hearing people play music. There's guys that, like the saxophonist in the blues band, I consider him a great friend. He's going to be at the wedding, and we all just love listening to him play a solo. So it doesn't, if he wants to keep going, we'll just play it again, play the progression again, let him keep going. Like, we love listening to him play. So it's almost, I don't want to get like meta, but that's kind of like hearing him and seeing him is through his music. So you can kind of experience a person's creativity differently.
That's interesting because there is, now I'm not a musician. I played a little bit of acoustic guitar, very like beginner levels when I was younger. And I remember being at this barbecue and somebody was goofing and they had like a couple of guitars out. So, I'm strumming, the 5 chords that I know along to this thing. And then he's kind of slapping the table and then somebody else is kind of harmonizing. And it was my first experience ever kind of being in this collaborative thing where somebody's contributing a piece and it sounds really cool, right? And I can only imagine that when artists come together and everybody has a piece of the puzzle that they're putting together that individually might not sound great, but when you put it together, you're almost creating this like flow state. Is that kind of what you guys just kind of really appreciate?
I think you hit the nail on the head. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My, like, especially bass is very much in the background, and people like don't really, you can almost, if I play things wrong by a whole step or a half step, some people won't even know that I played something wrong because it's just
Your bass guitar's not even plugged in.
it's subtle. So
If you want to join a band, just pick up a bass guitar. You could flow.
there was a quote about bass, and it might have been Victor Wooten who said something like, "You know, you're doing a great job when no one knows you're there." And they'll say things like, don't sacrifice the groove for a note, meaning play whatever note you want as long as it's kind of like in the right, bop, 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 as long as you got the right rhythm to it.
It's
you can
fine
just be
'cause-
wrong
it's
and
fine.
nobody will know.
Because you look at a bass guitarist, whether it's like at a concert or at a church, and they always have the most movement because they're swinging the giant guitar, but there's not a lot of hand action going around. So it's like, are you not even doing anything?
Right. Too much motion, not enough hand action. It's been my review for a long time.
Too much motion, not enough hand action. That goes across a lot of
I've
spectrum.
got that review before. So I would say that you can, like, so the blues band has some songs that are more bass complicated, more bass heavy. So we cover like Jaco Pastorius, and we do some stuff that I even have like kind of instrumental, not completely solo, but there's still some drum and like light guitar, but it's meant to be like a bass solo, like a guitar solo. I'll do that like 3 times in a show. Some people don't like bass solos at all and take them completely out of their sets, and they just want to play groove and be in the back. I kind of go the other way. Like the cover band I'm in right now with Ripple Effect, I just play the bass line that the person put on the recorded song, to the best of my ability. We'll do like Queen's Crazy Little Thing Called Love. Got a big down to relax.
Great, we're getting taken off of YouTube now.
So like that might be the busiest, most walking line in that whole show. Relatively simple compared to doing like a Jaco Pastorius song where you have a bass solo in it.
And who organizes? Is it a collaborative effort when somebody goes, it'd be cool if we did here? Or is it more of like, hey guys, just play the part. This is the part you're playing. Yeah,
that's a great question. So it's any small group, has like your classic stages of small groups. You're forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. You remember that from college?
No, break it down for me. Actually.
All right, forming, getting together.
Okay.
Right? Norming. Forming, storming, norming. Storming is where, like, if the 3 of us are going to become a team, we have to figure out where each other's boundaries are. Who's going to take criticism well? Who's going to step up and be a leader? And who, like the stuff you're asking. Uh-huh. So you storm, and that's like you're crossing each other's boundaries and then talking about it and dialing it back until we're comfortable with those boundaries, until that becomes the norm. So that's the third stage, is norming. Now we have the standard operating procedure that we all agree on, this social contract that we're comfortable with. And then you perform as getting your job done as a team. And then adjourning is when you depart some way. You have your falling out for whatever reason.
And this is what in the Communist Manifesto you
read? This is in like Psychology 101.
Oh, okay.
and organizational behavior. Like you might take as an undergrad studying business generic classes,
Yeah.
So
interpersonal communication.
So when you say like, okay, who is it that's going to project out the set list and make suggestions? Well, you figure that out based on the individual group you're in. So you might have somebody who's like really chatty. So typically you have a group chat, or like you're in the band app, or a Discord, or whatever it is that you use. And so somebody's in there posting songs, and maybe the other 3 or 4 members say, that guy's an idiot. He keeps posting stupid songs that none of us want to play. Or you keep posting songs that are like Whitney Houston, and I'm a male vocalist. I'm not going to do that. And so maybe that person loses their respect to the group to suggest more songs. Or like, no, it's not really on brand. But it kind of, I think of like the singer is sort of, when I think of who's in charge typically, it's like, okay, the singer has to sing a song. And that's like your biggest limitation. And they have to enjoy the song. They're the front person. They have to like engage a crowd, and they have to be good enough to.
So correct me here. The singer is not the leader of the group.
Not always, no.
No.
So,
or the lead guitarist is not necessarily the leader of the group. Is that?
Have you heard of Snarky Puppy?
No.
Okay. Well, the Police.
Yes.
Sting. He's a bassist. Mm-hmm. Rush was. I don't know what their dynamics actually were like in Rush, but famously led by a bassist, vocalist, keyboardist, bassist. I'm gonna get flamed if I get it wrong. But that's Geddy Lee. So you have, but if you think of like some of that's more like the original collaboration process too. I love some articles, some interviews about Blink-182. Travis Barker was like a late addition. Well, late being like 1993, 4 or whatever it was before Cheshire Cat. So they had a drummer and they were doing all this like fast kind of trippy punk stuff. And they were writing songs like how they used to. And one day Travis was like, well, what if I just like write a song the way I like to play drums? And it completely shifted. They're like, yeah, go ahead. And it completely shifted the way their song sounded entirely.
Interesting. He kind of painted a vision for them, and then they just kind of like, hey, that's a cool
Yeah,
place
he's like,
to be.
I don't mind playing the other guy's songs the way you used to do them, but how about we try something new? So in that case, the dynamics of who wrote songs and in what order the collaboration process occurred shifted.
Interesting.
So like we do like 13 originals in the blues band, and all of them were just like written one day by the singer and rhythm guitarist or the other singer and the lead guitarist. The drummer is yet to bring a song forward. I've yet to bring a song forward, and the saxophonist yet to bring a song forward. So they come and they just say like, here's a song I wrote and I play it on my guitar by myself at home, and here's how it sounds. And then the saxophonist was a music teacher and has led music for 60 years. So he says something like, it'd be great if we did this as a structure, and you come in here, okay, and try this instead. And so he starts orchestrating it once we get all 5 people playing.
You tell Larry to shut up and sit back.
Well, so far that's the formula that works, which is like, yeah, we do need some structure. Obviously, you have to you have a voice who's comfortable saying you sound bad. Versus like us looking around going, who's going to tell him that sounds awful right now? You got to change that.
Is that what you figure out in the storming part of the thing where you're like, who's a more forward person to?
Yeah. And who do you respect for you
have a bunch of like anonymous people on 4chan that you're like, this guy sucks. Hopefully he reads it.
Yeah. So our collaborative processes with those original songs has been the person plays it on guitar, and I kind of make a bass line that sounds like what they're playing. I just kind of have to wing it and see what fits, and then they'll say, okay, I kind of like that, or how about we try this instead? And then we'll be playing along, and we might all just kind of say, this sounds a little flat. We need to change. Like, we've done the same thing now for 3 minutes. We need something different in here. Let's try this instead.
Right.
And
you send in the guy to tell the truth. What happens with the legal aspect of it, like the cover bands, right? You guys are getting paid money to do a gig, and here you are playing these songs. So wouldn't that be like an in-person copyright strike? I mean, that is let's because I know you guys don't. I know you guys don't.
You are correct. There is.
You're not wrong.
I forget the name of it. There is an organization.
Because you already said how much money you're making.
Oops. Well, I haven't told you what we're playing, so those artists need to each come to my show and figure out how much money they want.
You set the band names.
Yeah, and we'll be. And
what are his addresses?
So. There is a group that oversees kind of royalty law, and I forget, it's like VCM or VCI or something like that, and I couldn't even tell you what it stands for. But there is an element of like you are supposed to pay royalties when you play a cover, and especially like we're doing a soundtrack for an independent film that was shot here.
Oh, no way! Really
it's
cool.
Called the Pacific Northwesties. And we are not allowed to use any pre-existing song, period. They're not going to pay for a royalty. So we can't even do our cover of that.
Yeah.
I don't know how it works for artists. Like, you have artists doing YouTube channels all the time who make covers. Tyler Ward, like famous for just making covers, and Boyce Avenue. I don't know how they structure it, that they, do they pay Justin Timberlake for making money off of doing a cover of his song or not?
So Kyle and I he was the one that educated me on this. Like, there's YouTubers out there, huge YouTube accounts like David Dobrik. Are you familiar with him?
Uh-huh.
So he has like Drake, music playing in his songs, or like Kesha, like some of these really big time artists. And we have a subscription to a music library like Epidemic, or there's another, what's the other one you use? Artlist, right? So you have a subscription, you're paying money to have the licenses to use these songs, and you have a library of them. And he's always like, how do they get away with it? Because every once in a while we'll get a copyright strike because the algorithm will pick up on it. But then you dispute it and be like, no, I have the license, and they'll fix it and they'll remonetize it. It's not an issue again. So he's like, how do they do it? And then he was listening to a podcast and he was saying that what David Dobrik would do is with the brands that are sponsoring that video, he will say, hey, here's what my average view I'm expecting from this video. Like, because there's usually has an average viewership of like 1 million, 2 million, whatever it is. If I can't use that song because it'll get demonetized.
Yeah.
But I have to go for a certain feel and a certain vibe of my videos for my audience. That's what they're so accustomed to. So he'll negotiate that deal with the brand and saying,
do you want 1 million people listening to your song or not?
Correct. So
Yeah.
you pay me what the money that's going to get demonetized from my video. And that's an interesting business
He just
model.
takes the demonetization.
He takes the L,
says, you pay,
and you pay my difference.
and I'll play your song.
Exactly. Now, these guys that you're mentioning that are doing cover songs, I don't know if their accounts are huge. Maybe they're just doing
There
strictly
are some
for
big ones.
Maybe they're strictly doing it for publicity aspects, right? Like, hey, I love that you did that. That's a beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm going to book you for a show. So they're probably demonetized on their account, YouTube channel, but they're making money on the back end, which is the front shows.
So I made a. This is as close to relating as I can make here with David Dobrik's channel. So I have a YouTube channel that is not famous.
It's all right. Plug it in.
And I made a tryout video for a friend to try out for an ultimate club. And it's actually
Ultimate Frisbee?
a professional ultimate Frisbee team in Utah.
Mm-hmm.
And she was injured and couldn't make the tryout and wanted a highlight video. And so I put songs that she liked on the YouTube video. And I was thinking, okay, there's a couple ways we can do this because I don't care about the copyright law. So I'm going to either post it on YouTube and see what happens. And I wrote to her as it's uploading. I'm like, hey, if it gets, it may mute the whole video because there's copyrighted music in it, or it'll mute the sections where it's in there.
No, it'll just say demonetized. You could still have the video up there, but it'll be demonetized.
I feel like I've seen stuff in the past that got like cut out.
Yeah, was it like ISIS beheading videos? Like,
No, I'm talking about like music playing. But so anyway, at the end of it, it just said the artist will receive any of the advertising income that this video makes, and it's like an unlisted video that's going to be shared with like one person, the person doing the tryout committee.
Yeah.
And so it's not going to make any advertising money.
Yeah.
But they allow the music to stay on the track, and it just couldn't be.
Yeah, when it's unlisted, you
Whatever.
essentially created something that only a small. And that's the thing is you'll have like almost like 3 options. You're like, I'm going to dispute this, let the artist have all the money that's going to be made out of this, and it's a copyright strike. Or the last one is like, I'm going to take it down or something like that. Like it's
Okay, so you're saying I have a strike on my account?
No,
And if I have like 2 or 3 more, then they'll be like, hey,
I
Free
have
Candy's got to go.
Free Candy's got Then you got Free Candy 2.0.
Serial violator. Yeah.
The sequel is better than the first one. There's you can put Kesha, you can do Blink 182, and it's just whether or not you can be making money. That's a different story.
Right when you kind of said Blake and Blink 182, and I thought, what if Blake Shelton joined with Blink 182 and it became Blake 182?
Blake 182.
That would be.
And he's the one that's organizing the music now, right?
As long as he replaces Matt Skiba, I'd be okay with that. And so it's Mark Hoppus, Travis Barker, and Blake Shelton.
I like it. It's gonna be a
And
unique
it's Blake
spin.
182.
Yeah, he's definitely not.
Yeah.
He's definitely have like a huge body mass index compared to the rest of
Don't
the guys.
waste your time on me. You're already the voice inside my head.
Well, we just got our strike right here. That's a good Blake. That's a good Blake impression.
It's not bad.
It's not bad. I did picture really quickly like a red truck driving through like a field, and then I snapped right back out
With
of
naked
it.
guys in the back.
With his neck tattoo guys going up. I like it, man. I like it a lot. Where are you standing with the whole NFT realm?
I also thought you might bring that up.
You know me very well. If by the end of this we're not talking
I
about
was
Rogan,
oh geez, there it was. Now that's your strike. I thought I was going to ask you about Russia and Ukraine.
what's going on in Russia and Ukraine?
You not heard? They're stacking up troops and weapons on the border of Ukraine.
Oh, are they doing? Well, they did something like that during the Sochi Olympics. that the day after the opening ceremony, which surprise, surprise, was the last night or this morning was the opening ceremony in China for the Olympics. They invaded Crimea. Russia invaded Crimea, and to have access, I believe, to the Black Sea over there as like import-export.
So you're saying this is just an Olympic tradition for them?
That's, some people open up their Christmas pajamas the day before Christmas Eve. Russia tends to invade somebody the day after the opening of the Olympics
ceremony. Okay, well,
we're old fashioned. We come from a country of like chicken jello.
So the point is that you haven't necessarily been paying attention, or you don't care as much right now.
Not as much. So tell me. So bring us up to speed.
I don't have a lot of information for you. I just kind of
they're stacking weapons to second troops on the Ukrainian border.
There's been
take over more Ukraine. Is that where you're kind of going?
I don't know if it's to take over more Ukraine. They sort of stated things like they don't want Ukraine to be part of NATO. And they don't want NATO to have any eastward expansion.
I see what you're saying.
And really, I'm just listening to like the radio in the mornings, so it's not like I'm super informed. I just thought you might have a little more dog in the fight.
No, I don't, and I'll definitely do some Googling after this. But I don't have as much drive to research stuff like that because I consider myself an American, and because I consider myself an American, I tend to be more using my bandwidth on things like Let's Go Brandon or the metaverse.
I'm only at the very title level of understanding of what's going on with Let's Go Brandon, but it's just like an anti-Biden thing, right?
You don't know where it originated from, do you?
No.
So it was a NASCAR race, and there was a guy that won it. His name is Brandon something, and he was so pumped and juiced. You could see he's overly excited. The interviewer gal, she's like, Brandon, you did such a great job. What was it like? He's like, wow, wow. And the crowd's cheering, wow, 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 wow. And he's getting distracted. And she's like, Brandon, he's like, so he's basically barely containing himself. And she goes, I know they're just cheering you on. Let's go, Brandon. But really they're saying, F Joe Biden. And so from that point on, it got coined. They go, F Joe Biden.
And he's like, let's go, Brandon.
And she's the one, she's like, they're cheering, let's go, Brandon. And that's where it got pinned. And so ever since then, there's been these constant meme. In fact, there's this one guy that was trolling. I don't know how it happened during the holidays, but he got to call into the White House where it was like Kamala. I think it was Biden and his wife were sitting there and answered his phone call on speaker, and they're saying whatever, and he goes. And towards the end, he goes, yeah, you guys are doing a great job, and let's go, Brandon. And then Biden's like, yes, let's go, Brandon.
Oh, no.
So it's just like a constant troll that's going on right now.
Well, that's what happens when you mix internet and memes and anonymous culture with legitimate politics.
And it's hilarious how memes work, because sometimes you'll get the entire gist of what's going on or get your attention based off a meme. Like I'll be scrolling through Facebook and I'll catch a meme or two and be like, hey, what's going on? Like I saw one, I love
you realize you have some catching up to do because you didn't get it. And you're like, well, what's that all about? Yeah.
Well, I'm going to trust CNN or Fox News to tell me to look at something.
I feel like the Let's Go Brandon thing was like that for me, but also whenever you see it, it's right next to a very clear message. So I'm like, I don't need to connect the dots that are connected for me contextually. Yeah. You just told me the origin of it all, exactly. which is funny. But I also I could tell based on who's using Let's Go Brandon what it means.
It's usually a particular group of people and whatnot. Yeah. It's hilarious because it's made its way now to any sport. So you'll go to a basketball game and there'll be somebody cheering Let's Go Brandon. Right?
Oh yeah. Really?
And in fact, here's the funny thing here's how I was in a belated state of me doing my Google research on this is I took my boys for the first time to the Boise State Broncos game, right? Mm-hmm. And they loved it. And I did a little Instagram story, and I had 5 people write to me, let's go Brandon. And I go, yeah, let's go Brandon. And then somebody was like, did you cheer Let's Go Brandon? And I go, LOL. And then I go, why are people
asking me this?
Yeah. And that caused me to do my research.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. What are you talking about?
So things like that too. In fact, I was actually reading.
The BSU football crowd's been brutal over all the COVID stuff. When the tickets came out and the tickets said you have to wear a mask inside the stadium. Basically the school had a program by where they would pick a random person who sent in their vaccine card, a student, and give them tuition. And they
Really?
would, so like they had the, I forget who it is, the lady down at the corner, and she's like, I'm here with so and so. She's the winner of our student, send in your vaccine program thing, and the crowd's just boo. They're just
my
booing her,
gosh.
and she's up on the screen, and it's like this kid just got like, I don't know, $60,000 or something of
They paid their entire tuition.
It was
I thought
like-
they would give you like $500 towards your books or something.
No, it was like it was a
Really?
huge deal. I don't know the details, so I'm not going to get caught like saying it was a specific amount, but it was a big deal. Only one winner or whatever every time they have a home game, and the crowd is just like, "Boo! You got this."
That's
like,
hilarious.
And like people, and they're like, anytime someone was on the projector wearing a mask, boo! Holy cow!
Here's the thing: is I don't care if somebody's vaccinated or not vaccinated. I could care less, right? I make my own choices, just like everybody else makes their own. But what I hate is when they give incentives to people, and there's now. A tuition is a different story. Like if you got $60K, you're like, dude, give me a shot in every part of my body. I don't care. But when it's the incentive is so small, like I think earlier in the process, they were like giving out cheeseburgers in New York City or something like that if you got your vaccine. In other places, I think, 'cause like you got a cookie or something like that.
Okay.
But like Irene and I went to go see Whitney Cummings, the stand-up comedian at the Egyptian Theater.
Yeah.
And we got to the kiosk in the lobby to go get a couple of cocktails. And I'm getting popcorn too. And the guy who's clearly on a date to the left of me, I'm overhearing them. He's like, "What if I don't have my card with me, but I have a picture of my vaccine card?" And she goes, "That's fine." So he shows her, and they get something, and they leave. And after they leave, I asked the gal that checked them out. I go, "Hey, I just overheard. What was the story with the whole vaccine card and showing it?" She goes, "Oh, if you show proof of vaccination, you get one small free popcorn."
You're like, that would have been worth it. I would have went and got it for that.
The guy just saved $3.50.
Yeah.
And so that's the part that to
Yeah.
me is way too comical. It's like I have friends who are like all about it, and that's fine. I don't care. I'm all supportive. I'm respectful towards my friends. But whenever the incentive is so small like that, and that's that's kind of embarrassing.
No, I think the incentive is more like you're free to move about the country.
Yeah, you wish.
You can go on a cruise.
Yeah.
That's the incentive for me.
Yeah.
I had a lot. Like, I might have just taken my chances with my own immunity and my youth and everything else, but it was like this became clear that life's going to be a lot simpler logistically.
Yeah.
If you just go get this free shot.
Yeah.
And so I did.
Can you still roll your R's?
Oh yeah.
Can you say Sofia Rogara?
Sofia Rogara.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It just doesn't add up. I had COVID. Did you have COVID?
I think I might have had COVID.
Oh, everybody says that. I think I had it in
No.
November.
So not that kind.
Until
Not-
you actually get COVID,
not the
bro.
one-
Everybody else is a poser.
Yeah, not the one where it was like, oh, I was sick before the first announcement.
Yeah.
Like 2 or 3 weeks ago. Speaking of which,
That's one thing is I had
no, I'm fine.
I've had this cough for going on 3 weeks now.
So yeah,
It's post COVID.
So I feel like after I had what was legitimately the Quran, that I get like a cough when I kind of start warming up for volleyball or something or jogging. It's the cough comes back a little bit. But so Marin had like a pretty good sinus infection for almost the entire winter and colds here and there.
You didn't think she was like a strong cocaine addiction? If she's constantly going,
No. So we went to Mesa, Arizona to visit her grandma, and at the time what they had said was like, her cousin, so niece so and so, we're staying with the aunt, and it's like niece so and so got COVID and isn't going to be joining. They had planned to come and visit with us while we're here, but they're going to be at their house, but we're still all cool. And so we went and visited the aunt. And we actually went and visited the people who had COVID too, but like in their front yard, and we never got super close and wore our masks and all that. Turns out that the wife of the husband so the husband over here has COVID. The wife never got it, never tested positive for it. And the people that we were with in the house, like on our way back, are like, oh, we're gonna go get tested, not feeling all that great. And so they test positive. So the aunt and the niece and her fiance that did visit us, and we're sitting around a table like this with them with no mask on. It's like they're the ones who came and said, hey, we tested positive. And while I was down there, so Marion was recently recovering from her sinus infection, and I had a bit of a cough, but I didn't feel like I had any kind of COVID symptoms. And like I disclosed to your viewers who unsubscribed recently that I am vaccinated. So
Waxed and vaxxed.
So it wasn't like I was never worried about that I was going to get something severe.
Mm-hmm.
And Omicron is classically reported as the much milder.
The one to get, yeah.
So we come back and I start like smelling this irony and tasting this irony taste in my mouth, and it's kind of like the taste of blood. And it's like, I remember we were eating barbecue on the last night that we were there, and I'm like, that's an interesting flavor of that barbecue sauce.
Cannibalism?
I was just thinking like, that's not it's something weird. I haven't tasted this before.
This is pork, right? Not human?
Yeah. I don't know that I would have chose that, but okay, it's fine. It's good.
Please tell me the story ends with you finding out that this is somebody's like leg that you're eating. Like
no,
a calf. No,
it does not in that. But it ends with basically when I start smelling coffee, and I'm like, that smells like the barbecue sauce that I had, and I'm going, oh, okay, everything tastes and smells the same. I didn't lose taste and smell.
It just changed it.
But everything had this weird metallic undertone to it, and so that was when I was like, I probably have COVID. And I cough once every 5 minutes.
You never felt run down or a headache? See, I had my symptoms were scratchy throat. That was the first day. And then it was 2 days of like that head cold, like that migraine, that nothing would take it away. And then once that went away in 2 days, it was essentially another 7 days of fatigue. But then, and dry cough. So the raspiness of the voice and the dry cough is basically the only thing. Got my energy back. In fact, I was building through it all, but that was the extent of mine. And then Irina didn't get it. And I got the PCR and all that stuff. So like I took the like legitimate stuff. And then Irina didn't get anything. And I was like, how is she not getting it? And then lo and behold, like day 6, she tests positive. It's like, gotcha.
Yeah, so one of the things when I say I think I had COVID is because I didn't go get tested for that. At the time, it was like you could no longer just drive up to Walgreens and get a test.
No.
And if you did get one on the schedule, it took a couple of days or 3 days to get back, and your quarantine period was 5 days from when you felt sick.
There's such a shameful.
Like, there's no reason to know if I have this or not. By the time I find out, it's over.
Yeah, I got myself tested only after all the symptoms, like the major symptoms went away and I was feeling better. And I was like, we have some events coming up. I was like, I don't want to go to it knowing that I tested positive. And then do we need to cancel them or not? And that's how that worked. But there was this it's funny how before, COVID's been around now for 2 years now. In the earlier stages, everybody freaked out, rightfully so. Nobody knows what's going on. But then as we got into the second year, we're like, a lot of people are already fed up with it, and like, who cares? We're all going to get it kind of thing. And no matter how much you go, I don't care, or somebody will say like, hey, I'm feeling a little sick. You still want to hang out? And they're like, I don't care. Let's do it. It's different. There's this feeling of like when you either go into primary health to go get tested and you see yourself and like 20 other people in their car because they're going to come out and test them as well. Like you become this like gross person now, right? And then when you test positive and let's say it's like 6 days after you tested positive and you're going skiing with your friends, you can't help but go like, are they going to be weirded out?
You feel shame.
Yeah, I feel shame for sure. Yeah. And I don't know why, because we were all going like, I don't care if I get it. But it's like, it's funny because my buddy, he was one after
you need to unpack this. There's something's triggering shame in you, and it's not COVID.
It's not COVID.
So you need to unpack this with a professional. So, we could do that if you want.
Please do. My parents were not very affectionate people, and a lot of it has to do with that. Maybe perhaps I was always a dirty bird.
Yeah. What might your parents say if you brought home an F on a report card?
Oh, I was beat, dude. Yeah. I was not good with we are doing this. Okay, I like this. I was not good with school at all. I had some serious ADD that prevented me from actually concentrating. And my reports card, I remember trying to come home because back then report cards were mailed to your house. And I remember trying to watch the mail and see if it came in.
Yeah, you want to doctor that up before.
Right. And
it's got a seal on
yeah,
it.
and immigrant parents don't really go like immigrant parents don't write you a sick note and take it to school. You write the sick note and then just have them sign it. That's how immigrant parents work. And so immigrant parents don't go like, oh, every quarter you get a report card.
They don't know.
They're more
you're
like,
just
hey, it's been 6 years. I haven't seen a report card.
How you doing in school?
Are you even going to school anymore? And so I remember, C's, D's, and F's were pretty common. So I would definitely have maybe like 4 C, maybe a B in like A or B in an art class, right? But then all the important classes, it would be like maybe 3 C's, a D, and there's definitely usually 1 F hiding. Not more than one, but 1 F. That's usually my combination.
So you got physically beat, but would mom call you an idiot or something? Was it a name in there?
There was no name calling. I got a bunch of belt whoopings, a lot of groundings from like TV. What I did have that was verbal was, and this is probably across all immigrants maybe, is
all the immigrants, listen up. Listen up, immigrants.
Yeah, you're the problem. Shame. There was a lot of shame of like, you're going to be, I remember specifically my grandmother constantly telling me, you're going to be a garbage man when you grow up.
There you go.
Yeah. Well,
there you go.
That was kind of where it came from.
Well, respect to the garbage men out there. That was just, grandma didn't know that was a great career.
Exactly. Because she didn't know they call them sanitation engineers.
She meant it as an insult, but there's a lot of great garbage people out there.
She didn't realize you have an engineering degree behind it.
Okay. So yeah, that's the kind of,
and because
somewhere in there you learn this pattern of like,
yes.
Oh, I'm bad because I got sick. I'm bad because I failed at this. I let people down because I got COVID. Now I have to sort of, I owe people this like apology, or I'm not good enough to be, go skiing with my buddy.
Well, I don't. Okay, so here's the thing. Apart from this example of testing positive, I don't know any other aspect of my life. Well, I do have a feeling of like letting people down. That's a pretty crappy feeling, and that's whether you're the weakest link on a volleyball team, because you and I, we've played on teams together, or I am the dumbest person in a group project. Like, I don't like that feeling of being the dumbest or being the last.
Or the one who needs help and attention from those around you. You want to pour into the bank and not withdraw from it.
Correct. I don't want to be the one that's like the caboose on this, right? Yeah. And so maybe that stems a lot from it, but letting people down is something that I always try to avoid. But I also don't put myself in too many situations that I would have to, like, I mean, look what I do for a living. Like, right. I work by myself with Kyle.
You're naturally winning a lot lately. You don't have moments where you feel like you lost, and so there's not a lot of opportunities to feel.
Yeah, I'm not letting anybody down.
Or shame. But you got sick with COVID, and now you let your family down.
Do you know what really? And this is probably, now that I'm thinking. Do you know what would cause me to have the most amount of like I've let somebody down and feel absolutely terrible, and I don't know how long it would take me to rehabilitate from it, is if I got a DUI. I know so many people who have DUIs. It's like such a common thing. But I for some weird reason, and it's funny because my job doesn't depend on it. I mean, yeah, maybe go and get supplies, but I'm sure I could figure out how to contract somebody else to get my supplies. But the feeling of like dad can't drive because dad got a DUI, or maybe driving under an influence like with the family. If I did that, that would wreck me, because that's like the ultimate letting somebody down. So. Which is rightfully so, right?
Yeah, I think this, has a little bit to do with what you're told is like the ultimate sin, and somewhere along the lines you've been shown like, hey, a man can't have this, on his record, and it makes you a bad person for doing that. And so for me, a lot like divorce was that. You're not allowed to get a divorce. You're branded once you have that, and that's the worst thing you can do, etc.
Did you get counseling when you got divorced?
Oh yeah.
Did they tell you anything that was helpful to get out of that stage? Because I want to find a good reason to get a DUI. I don't want to be embarrassed for it. You know what I mean? One day when I get it.
Well, so
just kidding.
So I guess like
this is particle board.
To go back kind of to like a full circle and like a quick little thing about this whole like the COVID thing and feeling shame. it's very different than, you know, having going through divorce and through the course of years.
I think it's
having
equal.
Several, having several, you know, therapy sessions, getting to know yourself and why you feel certain ways you do. But yeah, I guess I'm saying it's a can of worms we don't have time for to connect.
Right. There's no connecting. But was there something that they like in counseling that somebody could like tell you to be like, hey, don't feel shame?
So like here's your low hanging fruit. You know, things like should. Let's like this isn't even really therapy. You might have come across something like this from an Instagram influencer. You know, say let's remove the word should from some of your vocabulary. So like a man should be married, a man should work and do this and do that, and a man should not have a DUI, and you know, a winner doesn't do this. And so what is the source of your external measurement of right and wrong and good and bad? And is that's typically an amalgamation of how you were raised, your teachers, your coaches, your pastors, and your friends, and all these people built this snowball for you, and that's how you know what is and is not acceptable. It goes back to this social contract. You know, that was your storming and your norming. You think this is what a man is and what he should and should not do. So when you violate one of those shoulds and should nots, you don't feel like a man because this is now your equation says so.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, explain to me then, where is the line, right? So if we take, I love the saying that our ideas are not us, right? Because there was a time that we didn't have those ideas. So therefore, like, don't be part of those ideas.
Yeah, there was a time you didn't have that idea.
You didn't have that idea. So you used to be a blank slate, and then those ideas were put into your head or convinced or whatnot. So you're not your idea. So let's say we're going to take, for example, obviously DUIs is such a silly example because everybody should have at least one. I'm kidding.
So silly. It's such a silly topic.
No, but we'll use a man. We're not even going to put you in, but like testing positive, right? Like you feel like you've let somebody down or you're a dirty bird, that you should not be testing positive. If you don't have a society that kind of helps establish those lines, and you say we're going to take them all, those shoulds off the table, then what's free play?
So I would say, you know, hey, I didn't have this idea of the shoulds being off the table until somebody told me that, or until I came across that idea. So I think we all are raised with our list of right and wrong, just as though it's solid truth. There's nothing to examine. And this, you know, Dad said I can't go out past 8 p.m. I have to be home. You don't, as a 4-year-old, say, well, why does Dad make that rule? And can I take that off the table and examine? You know, you just do as Dad says. And so we all grow up with like just accepting what we're told, and that's the whole world you know. And so one day you do come across new ideas. Somehow someone else became more enlightened than that and said, no, actually, there's multiple opinions on what we should and should not do and what we can and can't do. And now we have completely different ideas out there, you know, whether it's politics or religion or just conduct in general and speech. So I've lost now why I'm talking.
What is Michael Scott says? Sometimes I start a sentence and I don't know where it's going, but I hope I get there.
Yeah.
Well, no, I guess the question is if we have
where was the line was the question.
Right, and who defines the line? Because there should be a line, right? Like you should not.
Well, you just said should and should.
Well, right, no, but because should you hit a woman? No, you should not hit a woman.
Okay,
right?
Sure.
Should you commit a murder? No, you should not.
Yes, I was actually, when you said where is the line, I would say harm is the most self-evident thing to start from.
True.
If you don't know what good and evil is, you do know what harm is. For the most part, there's some things that's kind of like, okay, is that just me sacrificing for now to get something better later? Is that the same as harm? But that's the margin. The majority is harm's very clear.
Okay.
That's detrimental to you. You should not do that which is harmful. So even if you say, I don't necessarily know what good is, whether this feeling of like
subjective,
is pleasure good or is hard work good? Okay, well, both, but it's the absence of harm. Is there harm in either one of those in the specific you're looking at? Yes or no? If it's no, then they're equally not harmful, and so the absence of harm is good. You could start there.
Okay.
and you could build the more nuanced structure of okay, where's the shoulds and shouldn'ts.
That's a great approach. And I think that's a great approach towards life, right? Where it doesn't matter what the complicated thing is. It's like, are you dating somebody who's causing you maybe, if not physical, but emotional harm? Well, that's not a good candidate, right?
Yeah.
Are you, an overconsumption of any kind of substance? Well, there's no harm. Well, there is harm because it's harming your body. And that's a great
And
measuring
possibly
rod.
your mind and many other things.
Right.
So you had, when you started in on like, where's the line? Okay, you shouldn't hit a woman and you shouldn't murder. You started instantly with things that are clearly large harm.
Okay.
So even without articulating that as the baseline, everyone goes to that and says, okay, well, every society says it's wrong to murder. Every society says, it's wrong to steal. So you can clearly just... Yeah, even without knowing that was the way you wanted to articulate the platform, you said, what about this and what about this?
So then, okay, to piggyback off of your example, let's say divorce, right? Because we all have the preconceived thing. It's like, that's a taboo thing. Don't do that. Because my brother's divorced, and that was the same thing that he kind of felt, right, coming out of it. Do you go, was that an idea that was put in my head? And you would never wish it on anybody, but when it does happen, do you just go, that feeling of I am... in either leftovers or whatever you want to use it.
Yeah.
Do you step back and go, that's an idea that's put in my head? That's a social construct, or what's the approach?
So I think, we're talking about how I assume other people are thinking about me, like as used goods or damaged goods. I would say one, that is, yes, it is like an idea that was put in my head, but two, I did grow up in that community. I know exactly what people think and say in that community, what I've heard firsthand, what I've maybe said firsthand. So I know for a fact, like, that's not something I just made up, that people were going to look at me a certain way. But I was more focused on that rather than an area where I wasn't allowing to say, there's other people out there who think of you much better than that. And they maybe even outnumber the voices over here that say something like, you've ruined your life and whatever else.
So you're saying you're listening to that voice more than you listen to the other voice?
We always have a negativity bias for sure.
Because that's going to be my question is the solution, because you know where the root is coming from, right? Because you're saying I was part of that community, or I was raised in that community. So it's not, you're not wondering where it came from. You know where it came from.
I know where it came from. I know where the voice came from.
But then when you recognize it, right, what's the approach to, like, because recognizing is one thing, right?
Yeah.
When they say, the problem is it's your upbringing, your nurture, right? Nature versus, it is your nurture, it's your relationship with your parents, it's what, and you recognize it, you know what it is. Now, how do we figure out the approach to how do we fix it?
Yeah, so like you were told only bad or incomplete or insufficient men get divorced. And so here you are divorced, and you don't think you're a bad or incomplete or insufficient man. So how do you reconcile that to, I can accept myself as a human being and be proud of myself, et cetera? That's what you're saying. How do you move into that therapy?
The solutions. Because to me, I've always I don't need a therapist to tell me what the problem is, because I can probably tell you exactly what the problem is. I need practical applications on a daily basis to be like, when those negative voices come in, so how do I approach that?
That's a really good attitude. So Brene Brown had an interesting comment about gratitude. This is saying that the attitude of gratitude, and she said, like, gratitude's not an attitude, it's a practice.
Gratitude is not an attitude. It's
you have to actually practice it. You have to say things, write things of which you're grateful for. And so I would say, if you're trying to change the voice in your head that's telling you are something, then you have to have a practice. How do you tell yourself you're something different? Or how do you change the voices in your head? So maybe you need to change who it is you're listening to, the kinds of books you're reading and whatever else that put some positivity in you. Maybe it's empty positivity for a moment, but you start to actually listen to a different crowd, a different voice, a different self, and you have to actually put the inputs in.
Interesting.
Isn't that a journal? People journal all the time. Journaling's super helpful for getting through a mindset issue.
Have you ever journaled?
Yeah, 100%.
What's the approach? I'm learning a lot of new things. Like recently I learned what meditation really is, right? Because before I used to think it's this like yogi thing that you're sitting there and you got some mantra that you're repeating, but then the more people I speak to, they have such different variations of meditation, where it's like somebody's like, I just run without headphones on, meaning like I clear thoughts out of my head, or I just sit there and I breathe. The idea is the absence of stimulation of your brain. I guess that's the way it was kind of explained to me. It's always different. What's your approach on journaling? Because I've always thought journaling was, dear diary, today was a good day. I felt angry, but then I caught myself and I did this to distract myself, and I was not angry, and I'm pretty happy with myself. The end. Good night.
Have you written an entry like that into a journal?
No.
Why do you think that journaling is that?
Because of what TV would show you, what journaling, the Dear Diaries.
Sure. I think, that's
Captain Logs.
That's like a middle school girl on TV.
Yeah,
would say,
you
Dear
have
Diary,
pictures in your binder.
Bobby is so cute, but he ignored me at lunch.
Right. So we need to have a different title for it then, because if that's what media showed it to.
So journaling for me, it might be that I'm listening to a podcast or a seminar or a debate or something, and I'm writing down thoughts that I liked that were about the subject that I'm considering. I don't necessarily put like, hey, this is my mindset today, and then flip a couple pages, here's what Jordan Peterson said about it, here's what Steve Harvey said about it, and boom, here's now where I'm at today. It's not linear like that. I'm more like just writing down quotes that I liked and components of that person's presentation. It might be that I'm taking notes, like an outline of someone's TED Talk or something, and those notes just strictly help me remember it. It's not even about referencing later, but it's just concreting it a little further in my mind.
There is that, they do say that by you writing something down, it's not necessarily for you to reference it later. It's the fact that it's allowing your mind to digest it a little bit further by writing it down.
So for me, that's the kind of journaling I have done. And then if I do have more kind of conflicting thoughts, like should I take a job, or am I happy with this person, or I might kind of start writing out some of, not necessarily a pro and con list, but like in sort of a narrative form of like, here's why I like this idea, here's why I don't like this idea. So I think it's just a way of articulating what's going on in your head. Once it's out on the paper, I can also breathe a little bit, and instead of thinking about that all day, and instead of losing sleep over it and wishing you had said something, it's now written down, and I can move on, and I've got space in my head now.
That's a very powerful thing that I've recognized. The very last part about writing things down, because it's not in your head anymore. I always underestimated the power of that. And the way I stumbled across, and I only stumbled across it in the last maybe like a few months, is I would catch myself having pretty interrupted sleeps in the middle of the night, and I would wake up. I always have a little bit of anxiety because whether or not I'm going to fall back asleep. And I have a pretty strong track record of staying up another 2 hours and not falling asleep till like 5 again. And I'd be a zombie. And the one thing that I'm trying to stop doing while I'm having the anxiety is stop thinking about stuff. Just think of a blank canvas, think of a black curtain or something like that. But the power that I found is throughout my day, if I need to do something, I have a list. So for example, I have a list for computer work. Don't forget to send this to somebody. Don't forget to answer that email. By me writing it into my phone little task thing that says computer work, I now offloaded this bandwidth off my brain.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah, there's so much power behind it.
Have you ever felt like, you're sitting there contemplating a conversation you and Irina had, and you felt misunderstood or something, and you're like, I really wanted to say this. And
I do.
You stew on it.
Yeah.
But if you just put that down in your text and say, hey, we had this conversation last night, and I just wanted to say this and get this feeling out there. We can start with this message, and maybe we could talk about it later. Send that. Now you don't have to think about it for the rest of the day at work.
That's a good way to do it.
It's out.
That's a good way to do it.
I'm not saying that I'm not giving people relationship advice.
I think you should. I think it's a great example.
If you know yourself, I know that if I don't do that, and I did something like that kind of recently, and I was just like, hey, this kind of bothered me, but I know tonight we're busy, and then I don't really want to sit here and hold this for another 24 hours because I'm going to be silent and stern, or I'm going to be giving you no benefit of the doubt and just kind of looking for the worst and looking for an excuse to be mad. And you just kind of hold and fester, and then things kind of have a way of either blowing up at the end, or it becomes full-on resentment, and it becomes full-on disrespect later. All because I've been now thinking about this issue. It was a 10-minute thing that happened, but I'm going to think about it all day at work, all night the next night. And then if we don't talk, when are we going to talk tomorrow? Is it going to be another day at work?
Right. We're wasting more and more time.
Yeah. And if just saying, hey, we don't have to talk about this over text, but this is something that I'm feeling, then it's out. You know how I feel. I said how I feel. I don't have to think about how I feel anymore. It's documented.
Yeah, there's a lot.
There's probably some people out there, especially with with anxiety issues and stuff too, that are like, that doesn't work that way. You can't just say something. Yeah. Now I'm anxious about the text and the feelings.
Well, the worst one is if they answer that text and they go. So I think where you're going with this is by you, because you preface with, we don't have to talk about it right now, but I just want to let you know that I was bothered, I was hurt, and the key is we don't have to talk about it now. You're praying and hoping that the person goes, thanks for saying that. Yes, let's talk about it later or whatever. But on the off chances that they say, great, we're talking about it right now, and you're having a day now that you're working, and you're communicating in the worst way to communicate is through text messaging.
If you knew that was going to be bad for you, if you know yourself and you know you don't have time today or you're not going to communicate over text very well, then you should just say that in that same text.
Correct.
And say, hey, I know I don't normally text a lot about my feelings, but I wanted to put this down. Maybe we can talk about it later. Is tonight good? Or in my case, like, that night wasn't really a great time. We had 30 minutes before something, and then after it was going to be real late. And it's like, I would rather handle it over text, because to me it was a pretty straightforward. Like, if I just tell you how,
because she was wrong and you're right.
It was definitely not that. Now we're gonna get the show canceled. You're gonna get some lawsuits over that one. Some defamation. I guess I would just summarize it by, like, in our case, it was something that could be like, oh, this is how it came across and how I felt. Well, this is what I really meant by that. And you could reach an understanding pretty quick. It wasn't like, it wasn't something like, hey, I've been thinking I don't want to have a kid with you. That's, we need to have a much bigger conversation about that. And you just dropped a bomb on her day.
Right.
And that's not the kind of thing I'm talking about. I'm saying, like, I was just going to hold on to my feelings and thoughts and think about them all day at work. Now I've got it down. And if I didn't text that, if you don't want to text that, then still write the thing down, how I'm feeling this morning. Go ahead and write it out in narrative. Don't send it.
Yeah. I have a tendency to overlook or read into too much stuff that is communicated to me in my relationship, let's say with my wife. For some weird reason, I know she has good intentions towards me, right? She never says anything just out of spite because she knows she's trying to, like, jab at me for something. There's a 10-year track record, so I know that's not the case. But for some weird reason, I always find places to be on the bitterness train, and I'll read into things. For example, here's a great example. We were at a group event, and somebody said, hey, we should all do this thing. It's like it
sounded real sketchy already. You're at a group event. Hey, everybody, we should all do this thing.
But don't make it weird. It's all about trust. Okay.
All right. Go ahead.
No. But we're like a group hangout. It doesn't help by describing it like that. We were a group hangout, and somebody said, hey, let's all do this, like, I think it's like a marriage counseling seminar kind of thing. And Irina sitting next to me, and she looked at the person who pitched that, and she goes, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. And to me, I don't care about going to it or not. Like, that's not irrelevant to me. But I read into the fact that she agreed to it without even just looking at me for a second. Because to me, I would have loved for her to, like, just do a quick little 2-second, like, we can do that, right? And then turn back and be like, yeah. But to me, what I read into, and I know she was not trying to be, like, disrespectful or hurtful, is all I saw was that she was looking at this person to the right of her and said, yeah, we're going to do it. And then I'm like, I would have loved at least a glance, like an eye connection. Yeah. And that allowed to sit and fester and blow into something in my mind. So what I've learned is to not enslave myself to those kind of bitternesses. What I try to do now is to apologize, or not even apologize, because that's not something for me to apologize. I'm trying to get better and better about sharing exactly what bothered me as soon as I can.
So when you're riding home from that event, you might say, hey, there was a moment there where you agreed to go to marital counseling thing, and it felt like, from my perspective, it's something I would have wanted to
Yes.
talk with you beforehand, and it made me feel a little bit skirted, or it made me feel a little bit not important. Or did you mean for it to come across as though I'm not supposed to be involved in that decision or something?
Yeah.
And I think that's a situation where they go, no, that's not what I meant at all. I was just trying to be polite and agree to that person, and
Yes.
and I'm totally going to talk about it. And it's easier to say no later than to tell the guy no to his face and insult him in front of the whole group.
And 100% of the time, that's usually how the conversation goes. In fact, we talked, with this happened on Wednesday. We talked yesterday, which is Thursday. I addressed it to her. And it's exactly that. She goes, I thought I did look at you. I was like, no, but you looked at me like after you already committed to us. But I read into it. Like, it's not necessarily.
There you go. If you know yourself well enough to say, I read into this and I wasn't giving you the benefit of the doubt, that's a great place to start.
I am a firm believer that the brain is a very dangerous thing, because the brain can convince you of things that are not there.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
It's from lunatics who say they saw Sasquatch to people like myself who are finding themselves reading into things that are not there. I know she means well for me. She has never tried to hurt me with being like disrespectful. But my brain still finds these places to be on that bitterness train. And so my job is to get things out of my head. By the quicker that I share that with her, the quicker she'll explain to me what really happened, and the quicker we're past it.
One of the phrasings I've heard for this type of situation is, the story I'm telling myself is
I
blank.
like that.
Yeah. So when you agree to that, and the story I'm telling myself is that you didn't really think I'm important to decision making, and I know that's probably not true, but I want to tell you how I was, what that's doing in my head, and give you a chance to make me feel better about it, please.
Yeah, no,
something
for sure,
like that.
For sure, no, it's powerful. I think what ends up happening, one of my favorite quotes is, marriage gets bitter or better, and the quicker you take things that will make it bitter off the table by just sharing it with the person, the faster you'll get out of that bitterness. But bitterness will swell, and it'll constantly add to it. The more time you let it sit there, that you don't bring it to light to the person's attention. Because it's going to be a small thing like that, the fact that she didn't look at me just to grab my attention to see if I'm on board. Then to today, the fact that she took my car and it's on empty and she didn't fill it up, and that just added, like, ounces become pounds. And compounded interest. Yeah.
If you let something, I would say, if for me, if I let like an uncommunicated negative feeling become, and I'm sitting and festering it, and that next thing happens, that's where it's like, I know it's going to result in resentment, and I know it's going to result in disrespect. So I guess you could call that bitterness and put that in the same umbrella. Yeah. And for me to just go ahead and communicate it, and try to communicate it without, I've also learned, sometimes when I communicate what's going on, my partner doesn't want to hear like you a lot. So in your case, they wouldn't want to hear, you said to that person that we were going to do this, and you didn't look at me, and you didn't think about me, and it's like, instead of phrasing everything as what you did, it's more like, I heard you say this and I felt negated in that, and I was telling myself that I was less important, and so it was more.
So did the you make it seem like you're assuming what she meant, right?
There's an element of that, and there's just like a self-righteousness when you're telling somebody you did this and you did this and you did this.
Oh.
You're I think taking this role as the external source of the right and wrong again, and what the shoulds be. Mm-hmm. You're saying you didn't put the gas in the truck, and you didn't do this, and you didn't do that. It's like, okay, but you might say, hey, when I got the truck back, it was out of gas. Was there an emergency or something you were dealing with? Or
I like to be, and this is not, I don't know,
trap her in a corner of that or anything, but it's like, hey, I thought we might have talked about this before. I thought we agreed we would fill up the truck, and
I don't know if this is a healthy thing to do, because Irene and I, we communicate through laughter and humor, and it's very rare that we actually have serious,
a good roast session,
right? And so what's hilarious is, I don't know if this is healthy, and I'd love to hear somebody else's perspective on this, but I have this like almost like a humor-based passive aggressiveness, because I'll do
sounds real healthy, Alex.
like the truck will, let's say for example, the truck will come back empty, and I'll be like, hey, you know what I like to do when the truck is empty? Fill her up. That's just a little trick that I like to have, and then she will kind of laugh about it too, and then maybe I'm actually like, oh, is that what you like to do? I was like, yeah, it's kind of nice. I don't know if but But I think it only works
So-
because she's so nice. If it was an average
Well,
person,
You guys have established your norm, and
Yeah.
so if
Or
so
storm.
you storm
You storm
to
to decide,
establish
yeah.
the norm, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what I've learned with my partner, there a lot of things that I think of as like what maybe to me were negative or bitter comments don't come from a place of negativity or bitter in her heart, and she's saying that with a different type of sarcasm. So you guys have this passive aggressive sarcasm that to someone else would piss them off, and
Right.
they would be like, you're an
Right.
absolute jerk, and I had to take the kids to school and this and that, and you don't even care the fact that I was running late, and now you're just making fun of me for bringing the whatever. So
right.
but your pattern's totally different. And so if language is just communication of intent. And so if your intent is to gently remind her that you'd like the gas to be filled in the truck when she brings it back, and to let her know that you love and value her,
Right.
and that's how you do that through sarcasm, and she receives it that way, then 100%. You're
So
perfect.
I'm right. Everybody should do it.
Everybody should do it. That's not going to be the case with everybody who's not in a 10-year relationship.
I think we need to redefine this podcast to be the Love Line 2.0. Right?
Yeah, so
You'll be the
get a
Adam
caller on
Carolla.
the line here, Kyle.
Hi, this is Stacy calling.
Yeah, yeah. I'll tell you what to do, Stacy.
My boyfriend hits me. You're like, well, what are you doing wrong, Stacy?
Yeah, exactly how much weight have you put on in the last week?
Oh my god! I thought it was bad what I said.
No.
Oh.
No, so that's one of my spiritual gifts is take it when people are up to the line of where like offensive is and like everyone's chiming in. I always give it that last little nudge, and then everybody goes, "Oh, that was awful," and I'm like, wasn't everybody just doing that?
Yeah, it's like when everybody's flicking boogers and swatting little. What do they call
Is
them?
this what they did at the group event you were at? What are you doing?
When
Flicking
people
boogers.
flicking boogers at each other. You throw the whole binder.
We're
and get
all
everybody-
we're all gonna flip boogers at each other now, folks.
Okay.
Also, right hand red.
I would love to hear what your perspective is on this whole metaverse that's being developed.
Yeah, I'm glad we segued because we took a nice long path to your psyche and relationships.
I
And
like
everything.
it. Those are my favorite conversations.
But that just shows that we're men in our 30s.
Yeah.
You know, you're still in your 30s.
I'm in my 30s. I'm in my 30s.
We're screaming towards 40, but you
Anything
know,
happened before we get into it? I always like asking people questions. How old are you? You're 33. Did anything specifically happen when you turned 33 in terms of like getting older that it's like a negative thing? Like some people, they can't eat certain
I'll tell you,
foods after a certain
when I
time.
turned 27, all my joints started making noise.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Not pain, just noise.
nothing crazy, you know. But like I'm talking about, like you just be turning your ankle and
I click
And
every time I walk. My right
and you-
ankle just clicks.
and now if I squat down, you hear all the.
And it's only
This is ASMR channel now.
Yeah, I know. Is it only lower body or is it
It's
like
mostly, yeah.
short- well, because
it's not my ankles and my elbows and wrists or anything. It's mostly knees, ankles.
well, you played some aggressive sports with like ultimate frisbee and then volleyball.
Yeah,
Like
and
those
I don't know if there's any real damage there or not, or what makes the noise. It's not, like I said, it's not painful yet, but I definitely noticed that, and I was like, huh, this is what the rest of your life looks like. So now
Yeah.
it's more when you get out of the chair and everything is all. Yeah.
Anything else? Is it sleep or is it food after a certain time? Beer? Can you drink beer?
Yeah, I can drink. I
can't-
can drink beer.
I can't drink beer.
Or what? You get gassy and bloaty, or
No, it's bloated. I get bloated, and if I have it at night, like I'm not sleeping well.
yeah, no, I can drink alcohol and go to bed. I still feel mostly the same as 24, 26, except for the physical recovery of, you know, like I said, playing sports. The fatigue is way more intense, and the recovery time is a lot longer. You do something, you know, light, you go play pickup basketball, and then that night you're just like, wow, I'm sore. It feels like I've been working on a roof for a week.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
just
Working on a roof for a week. You haven't been on too many roofs, have you?
feels like I've been, you know, bending over and dragging around heavy shingles and
Yeah.
nailing it, you know, like,
Yeah.
you know, your back's all tight, your shoulders are tight and stuff.
If you have a poor night's sleep, can you kind of rally for the rest of the day?
Yeah, a couple cups of coffee. For me, it's an accumulative thing. Like if I stay up late on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday,
Yeah.
it used to kind of be like by Thursday or Friday, I would have a rock star in the day. So like, we're not talking about crazy caffeine here. I've got friends that are 4 cups of coffee and a rock star in a single day. You got your monster there.
Monster
Is
right
that your
there.
breakfast, lunch, dinner monster?
No, I usually have one a week.
Okay, one a week. So
Yeah.
and here we are on Friday, right? So
Yeah.
your week was longer.
Exactly.
And you haven't caught up on your sleep. That's how I was. Lately, it's just 2 cups of coffee, and I'm a cup of coffee in around 8:30, 9 o'clock, and another one maybe 11 o'clock. And that's it. I don't have to.
Okay, so
I don't
you're
have to
still
do a lot of energy.
you're still stretching father time because you got a full head of hair, right?
I do.
You still have hair. Your sleep's not being affected. I've realized in this last
I
couple.
don't have kids though yet.
That's true. That does change it.
That's
But
gonna
it's
change.
It's also interesting because this is my 3rd kid, and I've been awakened in the middle of the night in my 20s, because I became a dad at 26. And from that point on, like, it was no problem. I just wake up, bad night's sleep, bunch of coffee, I'm fine. Now, if I'm awoken in the middle of the night from crying, it's like the coffee's not doing
You
anything.
never get caught up. You just
I
feel
don't.
groggy the whole day.
I do.
Yeah.
So my only solution to it is I have to go work out. So that's the only way to get out of that mental fog. There's been days that she will wake up at 3:30 in the morning and I'm wide awake because she's been screaming for a while. And I'm like, well, I might as well just get up and, shave 2-3 hours off my alarm clock and just get to work. And then next thing you know, an hour later, I'm falling apart and I need to go back to bed. It's wild. It was like a flip of a switch for me.
At what age?
So I think 33, or am I 33?
You're 33.
I am 33.
I don't know.
I didn't know if I was 30.
Why am I telling you?
I didn't know if I was 33. I'm going to be 34 this summer. It was exactly at 33 that it happened.
Huh.
It was exactly and in fact, it started happening in the last 3 months.
I feel like I haven't noticed anything of 33 specifically. Like 0 things that I would say happened at 33. 27 is where the joints changed, and it hasn't really had any major things since then.
Here's another funny thing is you and I are very active people. And like I said, I work out on average about 6 days a week, and 3 of those days are cardio. Jack, last Cinco de Mayo, we were at a friend's house. There's a big lawn in the front yard. Jack's like, hey, Dad, let's race. I go, dude, come on. I'm 6'2". I'm active, athletic.
I've got a horse's hamstring.
Horse's hand. I'm strong like bull.
You're going down.
Yeah. I was
Jack.
like, dude, what are we? He was like, I have longer, I'll beat you. Because I'm not one of those parents who's like, okay, let me fake it. No, dude, we're going to do it for keeps. For keeps. And
Pink slips, son.
So
you win, you get the Porsche.
Right.
I win, you're grounded for a month. Let's go.
So we book it off the line, and as I'm a few strides away from the finish line, I feel this. Oh, no, first of all, I see him booking, he's putting the effort to the point that I was like,
How old is he?
He's 7 right now.
Okay.
And I was
they
like,
can move.
I was like, whoa, dude, this guy's no joke right now.
Yeah.
I actually feel competition, and I do what an average tall guy does. Our strategy is get your knees higher, right? Longer strides. And so that's what I did. I go boom. So it was on the 4th stride, I hear this rubber band pop in the back of my hand.
You pulled your hamstring
And
racing
then I
your
grabbed
kid?
it, and I'm just limping back into it. So that night, I'm putting a belt, tying a tourniquet around my thing just to be able to walk. And it was my first time that I was like, I cannot believe this. It's just, I work out every day, and that happens. And that's an indication your body's falling apart, dude.
Yeah. That's tough.
Yeah.
That might be a hydration thing.
You think so?
I don't know. Do you drink water?
Yeah. There's water in this monster.
Exactly.
Look, there's water. No, I drink a lot of water.
Yeah.
I do drink
No,
a lot.
I mean, that's a classic story. I've got my buddy, is over 50, and he hopped out there on this softball field and pulls his hamstring going to second base. So
With a girl or?
He was in the parking lot going to second base.
Pulls his hamstring. That's when you're getting old.
Yeah, you can't do the Russian Eagle anymore. And you gotta,
Can't do it in the car anymore.
So yeah, that's just everybody will reach that point in their journey. Maybe I don't know. You got
Father Time gets us all.
Yeah, I think you just forget that there's a certain amount of warm up required for if you're gonna go over that 80% line. Sound like you had to kind of kick it in gear.
Yeah.
You can't just run even college athletes don't just go out there and run 100.
I went full send.
On track and field, it was the sprinters, man. It's the 60s and the 100 meters.
Because they're the explosive ones.
They're
right?
the ones always pulling their hamstrings.
Bunch of weak legs.
Yeah, it's like, dude, you guys have so little to run.
Yeah.
You're the ones getting hurt.
What's the hurry?
Watch the Olympics in the summer and see how many milers pull up with a hamstring injury.
Yeah. Have you had any hamstring injuries or something like that?
No. I'm going to after the show. I'm sure that
you kind of step down my one single step at the front porch and
where's that guy?
my homeowner's insurance.
Well, whoever's upset about this, I'll be able to briskly jog away. I think.
Briskly jog away. after a quick warm up.
Yeah, I need a warm. But so let's circle back to your NFTs. Maybe
Well,
that
no,
could
let's
be-
do the metaverse. I'm curious about the
Well,
the
that's
yeah.
well, same thing.
It is probably the same thing because I don't know that well enough that I thought it's just an acronym for the metaverse.
So I think the metaverse is the real deal. I loved Ready Player One.
Great.
Ready Player Two.
Great movie.
Well, the book was a lot more detailed in terms
Okay,
of like the.
people like you need to suck
No.
it.
I've
I
never.
hate when people go.
I've
the
never
book
done
was so
this
much-
before.
The book is so- oh, really? Somebody's painting me a picture, a visual graphic art, and then here I have to rely on the
No, they did paint you. You know, I forget the name of the author, but he did paint you a picture in the
yeah,
book.
was it in 4K? Because that's how I saw Ready Player One.
Well, you know, in Ready Player One, they've got like they're in like vans, and the kids have they're mobile, right? And the kids have these headsets and hand setups and they're like in the actual streets, and they're like holding little like fake guns and stuff, and they're like outside.
Uh-huh.
In the book, these kids are like inside really crappy apartments and stuff, and they're like in a dark basement, and they've put on 200 pounds, and like they live vicariously in this universe in a chair.
Like Matrix style.
Yeah, more like Matrix style. And they do have some like higher tech setups that are more like a treadmill and more like a gyroscope where you do have some free movement.
I thought that's what the movie was like because he was in his van. He had to go in his van that was like an abandoned
But
yard.
like when the kids are all like doing the big battle, they're like actually
Are they?
out in the street.
Oh, I got to
and stuff.
rewatch it again then.
And they're all like decently they resemble humans like in shape.
That'll be a good movie night tonight.
But the
Yeah.
old, you know, the book is more like people let themselves go and they just live vicariously purely as, you know, digital characters of themselves. And there was very little about the real, the tangible world. But anyway, yeah. So I do think headsets and haptic stuff will be the future eventually.
Do you think that's everybody, or do you think it's a certain kind of intrinsic person?
I would say that right now, I think that I would say blockchain and the metaverse are to, you know, that is to the internet what the internet was to everything before the internet. You know, you and I playing Minesweeper and Space Invaders or whatever the space pinball was, and then the internet happens.
Okay.
Did you keep just playing Minesweeper, or did you go to the internet? You went to the internet.
I went to the internet.
And that's where we're going to be. I'm not like, you know, Gary Vee's going around just telling everybody NFTs are the absolute future. And if you have a pizza shop, you have to put your receipt on an NFT so that if it gets popular, you get royalties for people trading it and stuff. I don't know about all that.
Right.
But I do know that you're going to, so you want to buy a digital product for your character in the metaverse, or you want to buy land to live next to Snoop Dogg. But let's say that you just want a cool sword in this thing, and the person in the metaverse selling it to you lives in Uganda. How are you going to pay for that sword? You're not going to Western Union some money to them.
I was going to hit up the Prince of Nigeria.
You can't Venmo them. You can't send it from Wells Fargo. You can't. There is no way to like. And having traveled and like when I had money to take back,
Yep.
you say I have foreign currency. I want to exchange it for U.S. They like put it in a box and mail it to the country, and they give me some horrible like 25% fee on getting my money back. That sort of stuff's just so archaic.
Yeah.
You don't need any of that. And so absolutely, like a digital currency is necessary.
Well, I believe the digital coin, right? That
Yeah.
part makes sense, especially with something universal like that. But my perspective on the metaverse was it was only the specific select group of online chat people, right, who don't like to meet people in person. That's why they go play Call of Duty.
Yeah,
or
that's called everyone in the
friends.
future.
You think that's going to be everybody in the future?
So yeah, not only do there's whole continents that don't have as much internet access that would become future consumers of this, but those that do, your gamers. I mean, how many people play Fortnite and Call of Duty and Apex and Among Us, and they'll use the metaverse like a game and just play the game instead of on a screen having to move their eyes and look around. They'll go play a game where it's all around them.
Well, that's the ultimate dream, and I think everybody would sign up for it. Like if you could be submerged into Fortnite, and you are that guy like with Oculus walking around,
Yeah.
that would be badass.
So
but
Ready Player One gets into like watching movies. You want to go watch Ready Player One, you'd go watch it from the character's eyes in the movie, and you would go live the movie. You go live a Mission Impossible as Tom Cruise.
oh, you're the character in the thing, right?
Or you can watch it from any other perspective.
I know the UFC is working right now. Dana White was saying the metaverse for you to be able to go to the fight and sit at like ringside of the octagon.
Yeah.
And watch these fighters.
I was just going to say the Super Bowl. But so that's a blend of the real world and the metaverse. You know, put on your headset, and now you're literally at the 50 at the Super Bowl looking around, and you paid money for that seat. So now 10,000 people can buy that one seat and they can charge whatever they want for it, just like they charge a normal seat price.
Right.
But eventually you'll just be sitting courtside at a digital game anyway. And you'll be sitting there watching people play NBA 2K.
Right.
And you're literally watching that game from the perspective of being in the game. And it's just as enjoyable or more. Now you're watching them play, NBA street ball, and they're jumping 30 feet in the air and stuff like Space Jam 2.
I think right now it's not as sexy because anything that we see right now is like the Pong version of it.
Looks like Wii.
Well, yeah, it's like you see like Brian Redman. He was on the podcast, on Rogan's podcast, not mine.
He was on the podcast. He was on the podcast.
Anytime I say on the podcast, I always it's 100% Rogan. Like,
okay.
Who else's would you say the podcast? And he was showing clips of him doing like the metaverse things right now. And it's like these like not anime. These the most like dorkiest. They look like characters from Grand Theft Auto. And like they're all like him and their friends. They're hanging out in this cafeteria. And like it's not as like impressive. And I'm only assuming, as we evolve, technology is going to evolve and that'll get us to the point where it's like such realistic reality. But listen, for you to put it on 3D glasses and you're in Grand Theft Auto, it's Grand Theft Auto like 2.
Yeah.
Not even Grand Theft Auto, like what is it, 5 right now?
Yeah.
You're in Grand Theft Auto 2. Like that's not as like, damn, metaverse, that's stupid.
I just don't know if you hear yourself, like you use the reference of Pong.
Yeah.
And you use the reference of Grand Theft Auto 5.
No, 2. Grand Theft Auto 2.
But there's a 5. But hang on. Follow me here.
Yeah.
Pong was real. That's
Yes.
a real video game.
Yes.
GTA 5 is real.
Yes.
All right? There's a trajectory of quality.
Yes.
Okay? So now we're currently in the Pong stage. Where do you think we're going to go?
I think you're right. I think we will be at the real Call of Duty, right? You will be in the real, right now you can go buy 007, right? Whatever the one, like it looks like a movie, right? So I know we're going to get there. I just don't know if we're going to get there in our lifetime, right? Like that visual.
In your kid's lifetime, 100%.
In my kids, yeah, for sure.
Because you also, like, imagine you were born in a time that the internet didn't exist.
Yes.
And so you just played outside and you played football in the street and stuff. And then 94 or something, you got Windows 95 comes out in 95, obviously, but like AOL Messenger and Internet Explorer comes out. And that, like, completely changed the landscape of what people consider to be entertainment and how they shop and how they listen to music. So I totally think that this is the same exact thing where you currently go to Spotify and listen to music. You might just put on your metaverse glasses or not even put on the glasses, but the device that you use to, I mean, maybe it's more of like a, hey, Alexa, play. Am I going to trigger Alexa in here?
No.
But, if you
we have sound deafening walls.
If you said something like, Alexa, play such and such concert, and, maybe your headphones are kind of connected through the metaverse. So instead of using the traditional Amazon account, it's using your metaverse account. And if you wanted to, you could put on your glasses and be at the concert, or put on your glasses and watch whatever sort of generic visual. When you used to play like on QuickTime or some of these other music apps and stuff, with random like lights and things, and would come on like it was its generic visual that went along with the music. There'll be something like that where you're not consuming the same stuff you used to consume.
Do you think, and this is, I guess, my big question about the metaverse is, do you think it's going to be what Ready Player One is, where based off of the movie, and I'm sure the book goes in far more better detail on this, of like, this is what society does now? Or do you think it's just like, meaning like the whole point of like, you work and then you take all your money to escape into the metaverse, right? Or do you think it's just like our big screen TVs? It's just another form of entertainment.
So I think it's a tool, and it's an interface, and it's infrastructure. So imagine, a bridge, right? So the same thing, dirt roads and the Pony Express are the way you got mail to someone. Eventually becomes paved roads and becomes mail carriers, and that's way better. And eventually becomes email and fiber optic cables, and that's way better. And then eventually becomes blockchain and the metaverse. And now everything's like way more secure and way faster. And there's 600 computers verifying every single transaction. I just think that that's how like you'll process every transaction you do, especially with blockchain when it comes to like Visa and MasterCard and your typical banking. You're gonna look back on this era where you had to talk to a person or pay a fee for an ACH transaction, or you had to you could possibly get hacked and someone could take your money, someone could spin your credit card. It's like that's no longer going to be possible. You can't hack a blockchain encryption with your laptop. I mean, yeah. That's the whole point of the infrastructure. And so now you're not just driving on 8-lane highways. You're flying, and everything's that much faster. So when it comes to the metaverse, like, is it a TV? Is it a this or that? I would say it's infrastructure. So somebody in another continent can come and work for Walmart.com in your area. And so instead of being maybe a phone service rep, or you might call customer service, their avatar is sitting in Walmart, and you're doing your online shopping by like scrolling through, like maybe you even walk through the aisles, or maybe you scroll through things instead of typing in, tires.
Yeah.
You could still do the same, or say, take me to tires or something. And you literally go, and now you can like see the tires, and then you swipe them around and stuff and pick them out. And then you could ask this guy over here, how much is this, or what do you think about that? Yeah. Or now the opportunities that were available to the person who could work at the Walmart right around the corner is available to everyone. And I think that's achieving a level of equality and opportunity that's not available anywhere else.
Yeah, I think with the invention of chat rooms in video games, and how submerged we are with our phones, and the fact that we're dating people via apps, I think it's far more convincing that we will be submerged, like our way of life will be through this kind of thing, especially because not only does it create jobs, but also...
Dude, and how much of, speaking of jobs, like how much of 2020 showed people they can do their job on Zoom?
Yes.
And they can do their job from here. You've got 2 computers here. I mean, you don't obviously have a corporate office you report to, but you can just report to your cool digital high-rise in the metaverse somewhere if you want.
Yes.
I think like there's legitimately opportunity to make people's lives better that way.
Yeah. It's scary, but it's wild too, right? Because the opportunities for you to have certain experiences. Because I remember I was at my brother's, my wife's little brother's house, and which is my brother-in-law, but it's weird to say when they're young. But he had Oculus, and he had this kind of a post-apocalyptic video game where it's kind of like an exploration kind of thing. But it was this trippy feeling where you have these like gas mask Nazi-looking characters, right? And then when you look up about 200 feet in the air, you have these giant, what do they call them in Star Wars? Those the things that were walking on 4 legs.
They're called walkers, I think.
They're just called walkers?
I think.
Something similar to that above. Mm-hmm. And it made you nervous. Like you truly like, it was so submersive enough for you to like look up and be like, your heart kind of like starts raising a beat. And this is somebody who consumes, it's like my parents, right? You put that on my parents, they'll have a heart attack.
Yeah.
But like
you're desensitized to a lot of the stimulus, and it's getting you.
It was wild. It was absolutely wild. And that's something that's, I mean, you multiply that by 10 years. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're there.
Yeah, and I think you already do live in the metaverse. You just live in a 2-dimensional version of it, and it's slower. So you get your phone out and you scroll through Instagram and you look at stories and you go through Amazon and you buy stuff and you check in on your friends on Facebook and stuff. Like that's all the same. It's all the same thing. You're just looking at it in your hand versus putting on goggles and looking at it around you.
That's a great way to look at it. You got a 2-dimensional metaverse that you're living in.
You're already in it, yeah. And I do think it's like the way that the phone and the traditional mail was. You don't need that now. You have the internet, you have text, you have a messaging component to every single app that you ever download, and you can get a hold of people in a whole new way. I think that's the same thing that's going to happen with the metaverse. You can pop in on people and see their avatar and talk to them and play ping pong or something in a lounge, and
And that's another thing.
chat with them that way. So instead of us doing this, we'd be sitting here playing pool
Right.
in some cool metaverse pool hall.
Yeah, it's for some weird reason. I don't know if it's because of the generation we grew up in, but sometimes it becomes scary. And the scary part is maybe the unknown, but a little sad, right? Because you're like, do we really want to be submerged into that kind of culture? But the reality is like it's only going to be an enjoyable thing.
That's the way of the world. When you said that, I just think of all the construction that's going on around here. And you look at all the apartments that are going up, and most of the buildings that are going up are just kind of big gray soulless boxes. And that's kind of what happened to Salt Lake and stuff all over the highway. It's just, people move in and they need places to live. And so you build the cheapest apartment you can, and you just sort of take over what used to be, so-and-so's farm, and what people used to love about certain areas is gone. And then downtown, you lose some of the mom and pop places that had the heart. And so it's like the same exact feeling of like, okay, I'm glad that it's growing. I'm glad that something's happening and there's opportunities being provided here. But I miss the old thing too. And there needs to be a word in English for like the feeling where you have a puppy and you're like, I love this thing so much, but I also know it's going to die and it's going to break my heart that day. And I like have this sorrow and this love and appreciation for it all at once.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel about seeing things like construction and growth and development in your town. It's like, okay, I'm looking forward to Shields on 10 Mile, but or whatever. I think it's Shields. And it's like, well, it's going to make traffic harder, and it takes away from what I love about the town at the same time.
I'm trying to remember which culture it was, but their whole life is like aimed towards preparation of death one day. Like you live your life so that one day you die, and that's the part that should be celebrated, that you do die one day. I'm trying to remember, it's like a Mayan culture or something like that. It was wild. It was a wild perspective where right now when somebody dies, it's a mourning because people are going to miss them. And then we try to camouflage it with, come to this service, it's going to be the celebration of life of this person. But there's cultures out there where the death is the winning part. And, that's the you won, essentially. And I'm sure that says some, evangelical.
And so when the metaverse is here and the way of your cell phone is dead, then you'll say, we celebrate you, Mark Zuckerberg. Z-Money.
Well, this has been nice, man. We got to finish this on a brighter note.
I feel like that's the whole point. This is a bright note. It's positive and negative.
Death is inevitable. We will die one day.
It's the yin and yang, man. You can't just separate. You can't have mountain peaks without valleys, and you can't separate the yin and the yang. So you can't have growth without pain. And are you holding back laughter?
Yeah, I was convinced you're going to go. Ain't no mountain high enough. There's no road.
If the mountain was smooth, you couldn't climb it.
Is that what Steve Harvey said?
No, that comes from Spice Adams. Actually, I don't know if you ever listened to him. Followed him on. He does little comedy shorts and stuff.
Oh, okay.
And he does like old heads.
Yeah.
And he did this one where it was like old heads making an Instagram video. They always use the full minute. And so he just said, like, if the mountain was smooth, young bloods, you couldn't climb
it. Followed by the licking of the lip.
And then just kept looking at the camera, kind of like, yeah. And then this is a minute of that.
I love it. I love it. Well, Rich, I don't know why I keep calling you Chris. Rich, thanks so much for coming on, man. We now, because this is your second time on, there's only a select group of people who's been on twice, and the people are demanding them. The people are demanding them. So we'll have to have a trilogy after this.
I hope that your viewers enjoy listening to my unstructured hour and a half of rambling.
Hey, well,
that's what we're doing.
I love it.
May it be a blessing unto your car ride and your work or your prison sentence, whatever it is that you're doing while you're listening to this.
Or not doing. It's whatever. Like unemployment's fine as well. But hey, we appreciate you guys listening.
Don't let someone tell you should have a job.
Yeah, that is don't listen to the must.
Okay.
All right, folks. Thanks don't do the sign off. I'm doing the sign off. Folks, thanks so much for listening. Rate, review the podcast on your platforms if you can. Helps with the algorithm. And check us out on YouTube. Thanks. Bye. You can say bye too if you want.
Okay, bye everybody. Yeah.